She was running barefoot on the rough gravel road, her breath tearing inside her chest, her heartbeat hammering so loudly it felt as if the world could hear it. The evening sky was turning darker by the second, swallowing the last bits of fading light, and every shadow around her seemed to stretch into something dangerous. But nothing was more terrifying than the man behind her, his heavy boots pounding the ground, each step sounding closer, louder, more violent. Lena didn't dare look back. She knew exactly who was chasing her, and the thought alone made her legs tremble. But she forced herself to run, because stopping meant surrendering her life. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of standing up for what's right, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support truly keeps these stories alive. Lena had always been a quiet girl, the kind who blended into the background without effort. She worked at a small repair shop near the old industrial district, earning just enough to survive. She never caused trouble. She never raised her voice. She lived carefully, cautiously, and alone. But even a quiet life can be shattered by a single moment. For Lena, that moment had been an overheard conversation, one she was never supposed to hear. Earlier that evening, she had been cleaning the storage racks in the back of the workshop when the shop owner, Mr. Dalton, came in with two men she didn't recognize. Their voices were low and threatening, the kind of whispers that carried the weight of something dark. She paused her work for only a few seconds, but those seconds changed everything. She heard them discussing shipments, illegal parts, stolen prototypes, and something even worse. Weaponized hardware being smuggled through the city using the shop as a cover. Dalton's hands were dirty in a way Lena had never imagined, and she had made the fatal mistake of letting a wrench slip from her hand. The sound echoed sharply, and all three men turned toward the shelves where she stood. Their eyes locked, she froze, and then Dalton spoke her name with a coldness she had never heard before. That was when she ran, out the back door, down the alley, and into the thickening dusk. Hoping she could outrun fear. Hoping she could outrun death, but Dalton sent one of his men after her immediately, a man with scars across his neck, built like a predator, cruel enough to obey without question. He chased her with the certainty of someone who had hunted before. Now, as she sprinted through the industrial district, Lena's mind kept replaying everything that could go wrong. She had no phone, it fell earlier. She had no weapon. She had no one to call for help. The streets were nearly empty, abandoned at this hour except for the giant metal loading machines, robotic cranes, and towering exosuits that lined the yards of the Iron Guardian's base. The city's factory where heavy mechanical protectors were built and tested. These Iron Guardians, as the public called them, were towering humanoid machines operated by skilled technicians. During the day, they transported construction materials and handled dangerous industrial tasks. At night, most of them powered down, their massive silhouettes looming like sleeping giants. Workers still stayed for maintenance, but the yard was quiet, too quiet. Lena didn't think about where she was running. She only knew she had to keep going, but her body was giving out, her knees shook, cramped muscles screamed for rest, her lungs burned. She stumbled once, caught herself, then tripped again as her foot scraped against a broken pipe. This time she fell hard, her hands scraping against the concrete. Before she could get up, she heard the footsteps behind her, slow, deliberate, confident. He knew he'd caught her. Lena forced herself up, staggering toward the fence surrounding the Iron Guardian's yard. She spotted a narrow gap where the metal bars bent outward, barely enough space for a slim person to slip through. Desperation gave her one last burst of strength. She pushed her body through, scraping her wrists and arms but making it inside. She thought she'd gained a few precious seconds, but the man chasing her laughed, low and cruel, as he grabbed the fence and began forcing his way in after her, metal groaning under his strength. Lena ran deeper into the yard, weaving between silent exosuits, colossal, metallic beings that stood like statues under the dim floodlights. Their red and blue indicator lights blinked faintly, giving the place an eerie, half-alive atmosphere. She collapsed beside the biggest suit, a 12-foot giant with Unit 07, Guardian class, painted on its plated chest. She pressed her back against its cold metal leg, trying to steady her breath, trying to stay silent. But her body betrayed her, her gasps, her shaking, her fear. The man entered the yard, breathing heavily but smiling. He scanned the area and began walking toward the machines with slow, taunting steps. He knew she was close. Lena closed her eyes tightly. She didn't want to die here, not like this, not alone in a place full of steel instead of people. But then, a flicker, a hum, a shift in the mechanical air. She opened her eyes and felt the ground beneath her vibrate ever so slightly. The Iron Guardian beside her, Unit 07, powered on. Its sensors lit up in a bright, sharp blue. One by one, other dormant units around the yard awakened as well, scanning the area with cold precision. Lena froze in disbelief. She hadn't touched anything. She hadn't triggered a single panel. Why were they activating? Then she remembered. The yard had one of the most advanced threat response sensors in the city. Any sudden movement, any sign of aggression, could trigger the AI-linked systems, and the man chasing her, his frantic climbing over the fence, his aggressive pursuit, his loud, heavy steps, his weapon now shining faintly in his hand. The Iron Guardians recognized the threat. As he stepped closer to Lena's hiding spot, the ground shook under the heavy footsteps of Unit 07. The massive machine shifted, raising its metal arm with a whirring sound. Its visor glowed brighter, scanning Lena first, detecting her trembling, her injuries, her defensive posture. Then it scanned the man, detecting aggression, the concealed knife, the elevated heart rate, and the body language of a predator. And something shifted inside the Guardian's AI. It saw the difference. It saw who was running and who was chasing. The man froze, staring up at the towering machine as it stepped between him and Lena. Even he wasn't foolish enough to fight a Guardian. Their strength could crush steel. He raised his hand slowly, but there was anger, wild, dangerous anger, in his eyes. He turned as if to run, but Unit 07 extended a massive metal arm with startling speed, catching him by the collar of his jacket and lifting him effortlessly off the ground. The man kicked and struggled uselessly, shouting threats and curses that echoed across the yard. Lena watched with wide eyes, unable to comprehend what was happening. Workers began running out of the buildings, alarms flickering to life as security lights brightened the entire area. She heard shouts, guards rushing forward, trying to understand the situation. They saw Lena, bruised and terrified, and the man struggling in the Guardian's grip. It didn't take long for security to restrain him properly. He was dragged away, still screaming Dalton's orders, still swearing he would finish what he started. But he wouldn't be back, not after this. As the danger faded, Lena's legs finally gave out and she sank to the ground. Everything she'd held inside, the fear, the shock, the helplessness, came crashing out in silent, shaking tears. The workers approached her gently, offering water, asking if she was hurt, but she couldn't speak. It was Unit 07, the cold, metallic giant, that turned its visor toward her one last time, lowering its head slightly in what felt like acknowledgement, like reassurance before powering down again. In that moment, she didn't feel alone. In that moment, she felt seen, protected, by something built from metal but guided by a code stronger and kinder than the men who had tried to destroy her. The police came. Reports were filed. Dalton and his men were arrested after an investigation, thanks to Lena's information and the Iron Guardian's sensor logs. For the first time in years, Lena didn't wake up afraid. She found a community among the workers who had helped her that night, people who respected her bravery and resilience. And every evening, when she walked past the Iron Guardian's yard, she looked at Unit 07 with quiet gratitude. That towering machine had saved her life, not just from a man, but from a future ruled by fear. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these emotional stories reach others who need them. Special request, before you go, comment below. Heroes come in all forms. Lena's story reminds us that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet steps of a terrified girl running through the dark. And sometimes it's the silent awakening of iron giants who choose to stand between a predator and his prey, because sometimes help comes from where you least expect it.